the agenda. We have an appointment at 5:05, the parallel products discussion. And I want to welcome Wendy Grasha and Tracy Wallace. Just sort of introduction. She knows how to play the game.
She's right up there.
So just, parallel products, the proposed expansion of the parallel products facility in the Bedford Industrial Park has gotten some press recently. And, it's a project that will impact the town of Acushnet, and I don't think people understand entirely what's proposed for the New Bedford Industrial Park. When I looked at the site, as the crow flies, it's half a mile from the Acushnet town line. So residents in the town of Acushnet are living very close to this facility, so they are going to be impacted. The other one, when I went to the same meeting Mr. Gaspar did, the one thing that jumped out at me, they were talking about all this truck traffic that was going to hit Brayley Road and how it would have no impact at all on Brayley Road. And I drive Brayley Road 2 to 4 times a day, at least 2, sometimes 4 a day, and I know what that road can be like in the morning. So for them to pretend that there's no impact to the traffic on, and I won't spoil, which is helpful to bring you in to talk about the potential impact on Acushnet if this project goes forward.
So Wendy Grasha, a resident of Freetown, but president of South Coast Neighbors United. And as such, we adopted this campaign after our newest member, Tracy Wallace, reached out to South Coast Neighbors United and asked for assistance in learning more about the project and basically developing community opposition to it, because it's something that will have a very negative and adverse impact on not only the directly impacted residents in that area, the north end of New Bedford, but the surrounding communities. So to that end, we invited Tracy to join our organization and to teach us a little bit more about what she's researched on the project. And so she's kind of the subject matter expert on the project, so I'm going to invite her to actually speak about it and share more information about it. And thank you very much for having us. I think it's really important for you to really learn the meat and potatoes of the project and not just what's being put out there by the company itself, for good press. So,
Great.
Tracy.
All right.
Ms. Wallace, thank you, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. So yes, Tracy Wallace, I'm a resident of New Bedford. I do live in the north end. I live about a half mile from where the facility is going to be. I had caught wind of this about a year ago. It was late February, I want to say, when there was a mysterious mailing that had been sent out to some residents with no return address. So like Wendy had said, I reached out to South Coast Neighbors United and went to one of the meetings that they had in March to discuss what the project was going to be. So the facility in the business park, they are basically going to relocate what's going on at Shawmut Ave to the business park. So that's currently what's there right now is the start of a glass recycling plant, but they are eventually going to move over all of the MSW processing, the C&D processing, and then they are going to...
You got to decipher those codes.
Municipal solid waste,
Thank you.
C&D is construction and demolition,
Thank you.
which can also contain hazardous waste and some of that. And then eventually also put up a biosolids processing facility. So biosolids is sludge, wastewater sludge. They are going to truck it in 2 different ways, in a liquid form and in a solid form. And they're going to basically dry it with natural gas in like a thermal oxidation process, where then they are going to, originally the company said that they were going to sell it as fertilizer.
It's human waste.
It's human waste,
Human
yes.
waste,
So currently in the United States, this practice is already going on. So most of your national parks, most of your community parks, most of your town areas, your crops that aren't organic are fertilized with Class A biosolids, which are in essence human waste. So now within the last couple of months, there's been a lot of news about PFAS and these forever chemicals. And these forever chemicals are actually being found in biosolids at a very high rate. So the plant in Quincy that actually produces biosolids, they did some testing and found that these forever chemicals showed 18,000 parts per trillion of 3 chemicals. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency recommends that municipalities alert the public if 2 of the most common chemicals add up to 70 parts per trillion. and they found 18,000 parts per trillion in the biosolids in Quincy.
70 parts per trillion, we would get notification, 70.
That were, yes, 70.
18,000.
Correct.
Okay.
And this has been spread, and this is a fertilizer that's been sold for 30 years and has been found
Since the
on
90s.
farms in Maine recently.
Yes, they put a farmer out of business in Maine, spoiled all of his cows. There's
Which gets back
basically,
into our food supply.
and it
Correct.
adds into our
Yeah.
food supply. So basically, you take human sludge, right, and you're drying it, so the concentration of chemicals is higher because you're burning it. So now you have to think about what we actually take into our bodies: antibiotics, hormones, all kinds of different things we're taking into our bodies, and we're letting them out of our bodies. and now we're burning it and concentrating it, making it a fertilizer and spreading it all over our food, really. So if you don't eat organic, you are eating
Yourself.
Yeah, we get the
yes,
picture.
yeah. So there's a lot. This whole PFAS controversy is coming up because of the Dark Waters movie that just came out with Mark Ruffalo about DuPont and how they created basically this Teflon, this chemical that has been put all in a lot of materials, and water-resistant materials and flame retardant materials. What's that?
Cookware.
Cookware, and these chemicals don't break down. They're forever, and they've been found in our blood. So it basically has created a global epidemic, and a lot of this is coming to light now. So, and this is all being found in biosolids, and this is what they want to produce at the plant in the industrial park. So,
And the concern is that how does that impact?
so the concern is that there is discharge from this practice. So there's water discharge that's going to flow into the New Bedford sewer system. So anything that goes into the New Bedford sewer system, if there's a big rainstorm, if things overflow, it could get into the Acushnet Cedar Swamp. That is a protected area. So there's a lot of pollution that could occur. Even with quote-unquote safeguards that you put up there, you really can't combat for everything that could happen. Not to mention a huge fire concern. There was a plant up in the North Shore of Massachusetts, I want to say Andover, Thompson Brothers plant. They're not a biosolids facility, but they're a municipal solid waste and construction demolition. There was a huge fire there that actually closed off a highway for days, and it took them days to actually put out this fire. And this facility is nowhere near a residential area. The industrial park, their plot of land is less than 500 feet from a residential area. But what they're saying is, to get around the law of a 500-foot buffer zone, they're saying that they're not going to use the whole perimeter. They're going to just operate within this perimeter so that they're within the 500 feet.
So not the lot, the building, that
Correct.
building on the lot.
Correct,
Mr. Brewer.
yeah.
Is this the site of the old Polaroid plant?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we won't talk about the
So-
excavation of that.
Right, so that's
Well,
actually a
that'll dry
fantastic
up.
segue. So basically, the project is in two phases. The first phase is your glass recycling phase and the construction of a rail sidecar. So they want to use the rail line that comes down back through the industrial park and hook up a side rail that will go into the Polaroid site and be able to ship the municipal solid waste out and potentially the biosolids out by rail car. They have to go through several wetlands to do that. So they have to go through the New Bedford Conservation Commission, but that is actually in violation of a 25-foot setback policy of the city of New Bedford. It also brings up the fact that they're going to be working land that has already been massively polluted, and in some cases, the remediation is unknown. So there was a whole page in the initial document that was sent to the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act office about how many times that site has actually been polluted since the 1960s and what the remediation was. And in most cases, the remediation is unknown, as recent as 2008. But there was, so now you're dealing with excavation of all of that. It's going to bring in odor So you're going to be shipping waste from Brockton, from Fall River. They're going to be using 24. It's going to, or 140 and 24. It's going to be coming through. These things are going to smell. They're going to be using a odor ionization system, and air ionizers give off dangerous levels of ozone, which is not only harmful to the environment, but can be equally as hazardous to your own health. When inhaled in high enough doses, ozone can have harmful effects, including danger to your lungs, chest pain, coughing, shortness of breath, etc.
Didn't they acknowledge that some of the waste was going to come in open trucks?
So originally they said that the waste would be shipped in two different ways. The liquid would be in a closed liquid truck, and then the solid waste, because you can bring it in via solid like cakes. Cakes, that's their term. That would be in open air trucks. But now in the new draft environmental impact report that was sent to the Mass Environmental Protection Act office, now they're saying those trucks will be covered. They don't define covered. So covered could be a tarp
Yeah.
on top of one of those trucks, flapping around in the breeze, and everything could just fly
Falling
out
out
of
of
it.
it still.
And you can still
Dripping.
smell that.
You ever follow a truck that just has dirt in the back of it with a
Yeah.
top over the back?
Right.
Exactly,
It's fine.
it all falls out. So I have asked in my submission of comments, I have asked for definitions of covered, what covered means. Truck traffic, they said about 400 truck trips, so each truck makes one trip.
A day,
Yeah.
400 a day.
Yes, that would be a day. The facility is going to operate from
Coming
5
off
a.m. to
140.
9 p.m.
Dropping onto Brayley Road
Yes,
from north and south, probably.
5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
North and south, because they're coming from 195 from Fall River
Right.
Okay.
and 24 from Brockton.
So north and south,
Right.
hitting Brayley Road, and there's no interchange.
Coming out
it's
of
just a
Wallings.
Right.
You
stop
got it.
sign.
Yeah, but I did read an article in the Standard Times saying it would have minimal impact. I mean, I don't know if there's any truth to that.
So
It was
the-
Oh,
400
yeah, well,
trucks.
there was
I don't know
a
who-
traffic study.
There was a traffic study that was done. The traffic study was done, let me get my traffic notes. The traffic study was done over one day. June 13th.
When there's no
It was
school
conducted
session.
over one day at intersections including 140, Theodore Rice Boulevard, and Brayley Road. The traffic counts were conducted during a weekday morning peak period from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and a weekday afternoon peak period from 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. I have pictures that I've submitted at 1:43 p.m. of lines of traffic and school buses and trucks waiting to come off that intersection. So there's more than just traffic between those hours.
400
So
400 truck
Yeah.
trips a day.
right,
Yeah.
right, between the hours 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. So
Because I didn't recognize who did the study, and
McMahon and Associates did the study.
McMahon.
He was very apologetic.
What's the time frame they propose operating this facility, did you say?
5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yes.
Wow.
Weren't there concerns as well with emissions from the facility? I mean, beyond the emissions from 400 trucks back and forth during the course of every day? Concerns about emissions from the facility? and-
Gasification.
So there are concerns about the proposal of gasification of biosolids. So gasification is a cheaper, new technology to burn sludge, and that gives off syngas, which is in part the methane, 7% methane. So we're going to be all breathing that in, and it does have significant health risks. Asthma, shortness of breath, respiratory disease. Over 350 chemicals are going to be processed at the plant, with more than 60 considered extremely toxic by the EPA. Volatile organic compounds are going to be in the processing of biosolids and MSW sites. A fatality is twice as likely when a car is involved in a crash with a truck versus another car. So now if we're adding all of these trucks onto 140 and onto the junction of exit 7, you're putting lives at risk. So,
We do have fact sheets that she can share with us.
yes, I will
Please.
get
Yeah, that would
these
be
out. I have talking points and whatnot. So it's not just a concern for New Bedford. I think it is a concern for all of the South Coast. I think it will affect property value for not just the north end of New Bedford, but also for Acushnet and Freetown, that whole area. If you have trucks coming in, no one's going to want to be living around exit 7. The stacks that they're proposing on the site, the stacks on the MSW building are going to be 70 feet above ground level, and the stacks on the biosolids building are going to be 40 feet above ground level. They say, they're not going to be able to see them from Phillips Road. You're going to see that from Phillips Road, but you're going to see that from houses. And anyone who knows that that facility is there is not going to want to reside in this region.
Which explains why they purchased the 3 closest newly built houses to their site.
Yeah.
So that equates, if I just did the simple 400 trucks a day, 16 hours a day, they're gonna be operating a facility that's 25 trucks per hour. What's interesting is when they did their traffic study, they didn't do it while school was in session.
Correct.
And I'm very familiar with Brayley Road because Mr. Cabral alluded to using it a few times a day.
Right.
I owned an auto repair shop out in East Freetown, and I used it multiple times a day. And I can tell you right now, I was smart enough to stay away from Brayley Road
Right.
when school was either getting in session or out of session. So
Right.
it was kind of like danger zone from
And don't think
1:45 to 3
that the
o'clock.
trucks won't find alternate routes and take those
Right.
alternate routes.
The road's a
Right.
mess as it is, just from the
There's
school.
no good
Right.
alternate route.
There isn't.
No,
I
there
know,
really
but-
is no
But don't
good
think that the
alternate
trucks will
route,
stick to the
right.
ones that they're assigned.
Right.
Well, what happens when you have that congestion from the school and those trucks start backing up off the exits and people start getting a little bit crazy because they're aggravated and they can't get in and out, and I don't know, that's just a truck issue that I have so
Yeah.
far, but
Yeah.
I think that's
Um,
ludicrous.
The company is calling the center the South Coast Green, which makes me laugh.
It sounds it.
And basically, they're saying that they can call it green energy because they're putting up some solar panels and they're going to reduce emissions. Because if they get the side rail put in, then they won't need as many trucks shipping stuff out. They can ship it out by rail. But if a truck comes in to dump stuff off,
It's still coming.
it still has to leave, even if it's empty.
Yeah.
So that rationale kind of doesn't make sense. So yeah, and it just,
Maybe they're putting the truck on the rail.
Right, with it.
so the trucks are actually going to back in to the biosolids building to drop off the waste. So that is going to create some wonderful beeping,
Oh.
but there's going to be no noise impact. But trucks from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. are going to back into the facility.
So the, there's a public comment period. Public
There
comment
is.
period expires.
The public comment
Thursday?
period ends on Thursday, the 23rd. So I can give sheets, I can hand out.
I submitted a letter, I
You did.
emailed
Saw
a letter
that.
yesterday expressing some concern about traffic, expressing some concern about emissions from the facility and additional truck traffic, and just expressing environmental justice concerns that why do we have to have this facility in our, why does it always get dumped on
Why is it always the South Coast?
southeastern Massachusetts?
Right.
Why do we get all of these wonderful facilities?
There's already a
close to
facility in
us?
Taunton and Rochester.
So yes, I do
So
want
why
to
are we
mention that.
adding- Instead of working on reducing waste, why are we
Right.
adding more facilities to take in more waste?
Yeah, Mr. Gasper.
So you said that you responded, was that a letter from our board?
No, it was a letter, it was a
or
letter
just
from me, it
yourself?
was a letter from me, but I did acknowledge the fact that I was a selectman in the town of Acushnet, but I wrote it as a personal letter.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know where Mr. DeRoche stands, but I would support Mr. Cabral's letter, so I don't know if it would mean more coming from the body of the
It would.
board.
It would.
Definitely, yeah,
That
which is
would
part
be
of the
wonderful.
reason
yeah,
I'd asked them to come in. I mean, I wouldn't have written that letter without the endorsement of the Board of Selectmen, but as an individual, I just look at this project and go, why do we have to do this?
right.
Why do we have to do this
Right.
in Bedford Industrial Park's a nice industrial
Where's
park?
the city of New Bedford on this issue? I mean, after that meeting, we didn't get nowhere at the Pulaski School. It's the Pulaski
It
School?
seemed very wishy-washy, right? However,
Yeah.
all of the city councilors are on board with us.
They're all
opposing
against it. The
as well as
mayor is
the mayor.
The mayor's
against it.
opposed.
Yeah.
Senator
Representative
Martigny's written a
Hendricks
letter
is-
questioning.
So what's
against
happening?
it.
What's, where is the process and why is the company still moving forward?
So it has many layers to go through. So the first process was the EENF, which stands for Environmental.
What are the letters? Make something up, we don't.
So originally, so you go through, so this is basically the first approval, so you go through Mass Environmental Protection Act office for approval. And then once the project gets approval, then it hits the Mass DEP for permitting. So once they award permit, then once the Mass DEP awards permitting for the site, then it will go to the City of New Bedford for site assignment, peer review, Board of Health review, and things like that. But it's multi-layered in state agencies and entities, so.
And
So let me ask, Mr. Chairman, if I
Yeah,
can.
Mr.
Let me ask you another question about this, because we're going through some things with PJ Keating over here, right? With all the residents being in uproar with odors and dust and everything else. And it seems like no matter where the board turns, it's, oh, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. That's regulated by the state. It's almost like, well, why are we here?
Right.
Right.
Where do the people have a voice, is what I ask, right?
So
So
the,
where,
the,
if these chains of coming in, a DEP, Environmental Protection
Yeah.
Agency, and all these other governmental that are supposed to be there for the people, if they were to allow and approve and permit and all that stuff, where does the city stand? Do they have the right to reject?
yes, so the Board of Health has the right to deny site assignment. And the Conservation Commission can also deny certain orders of conditions for certain things, if they don't see it meets wetland standards or whatnot.
Can't the planning board do something too? Does it go to the planning board too?
It does go to planning board for an amended site plan. So they could technically deny an amended site plan as well.
As of right now, all the city councilors have come out against the project. The mayor has also come out publicly against the project. He's also hired KP Law.
Yes, the mayor has hired an independent law firm to basically look into stopping this company. Basically, a little bit about the history of what happened. I believe back in 2017-ish, they put in a site plan request for glass recycling. And it really wasn't clear within that 80-page site plan document what the intended use as like a whole waste facility use was. It was kind of like buried in there. So a lot of the city councilors are saying they feel like the wool was kind of pulled over their eyes. That the company really wasn't upfront about their intent. It wasn't just going to be a glass recycling facility from the start. They always had intentions of turning it into a massive waste production facility. But just one more thing that Wendy had just brought up is that the facility in Rochester just put in,
Is this CMAS we're talking about?
no, it's New Bedford.
Bedford Waste?
Yes, in Rochester. They asked for an increase in MSW to
Capacity.
to 1,500 tons per day, which is the max that you can go. And then the site in Taunton, which was never supposed to be used for MSW, has asked for MSW use of 1,000 tons per day. So now you've got
Capacity.
two facilities, Taunton and Rochester, and now you're going to have a third in New Bedford, both basically taking the highest amount of tons per day of municipal solid waste, all within a 25-mile triangle of one another. How is that a reduction of waste? And everyone keeps saying, oh, the state's in a waste crisis, this is why we need these facilities, these new waste to energy facilities, let's gasify and use all of these new technologies. Well, if the Mass DEP actually enforced their waste bans, our waste would be reduced by 40%. They just enforced their waste bans. So,
You have literature you could pass on to the board?
There's no money to be made in reducing
Right.
waste.
Right, that's what it boils down
I
to.
ask you just
Because
concluding
it comes from us taxpayers
comments.
as well.
Right.
Concluding comments?
No, I mean, thank you for having me, and
Thank
we hope to gain the support of the town of Acushnet. Because we
Did you want to review the material provided? I know we're bumping up against a...
I went to the meeting at Pulaski School. I know I seen Miss Gracia there. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
You did.
It's
It's good, moving on.
But anyways, I am familiar with it, and I am opposed to the site. If we have a say in saying we're opposed to the site, I'll go on record with Mr. Cabral and
It
say...
would be helpful for the purposes of building community support across.
I am
South
also
Coast, you know?
opposed to the facility. Reason, glass recycling is one thing,
Right.
Right.
taking it to this step, I mean, it almost sounds like this is gang related, MS4 and MS3 and all of what.
It's money, it's all about money.
It's like, you've got
Right.
these private little codes so that everybody knows what these
Yes.
things stand for, and,
Yeah.
who's paying attention, you know what I mean? It's
Exactly.
thank God you have people like you that are...
Do you want to make a motion that we write a letter expressing concern about this? I don't know what the letter would say, but we could express concern or...
Yeah.
I mean, I drafted something. I mean, I've got a letter. My letter was emailed yesterday, the day before.
I would endorse
so-
that in a heartbeat.
And we can certainly draft something, I can help with that. We can certainly draft something and circulate it to the members of the board to make sure everybody's on board before we sent it, but we got a
There's a
fairly...
deadline, it's
Fairly
coming
This
up.
short.
Thursday, one of the first things that we ask.
Not this
people to-
Thursday, though, right?
This
This
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, this Thursday.
So we get this
One of the-
distributed
You
and-
probably provide an email address, we can email it. Yeah.
She's got it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're asking everybody that does submit comments, whether it's private or whatever, is that we ask for they ask for an extension of the deadline, because we were only given originally 30 days, and then it was extended 30 days. But you're just learning more about it. The communities in the surrounding areas are just learning more about it. It's not enough time. The DEIR report is over 1,300 pages long. How you expect any citizen to live and work and go through and it was released around Thanksgiving. So,
November 23rd.
all right, so we did the holidays on top of everything else, and we're supposed to read a 1,300-page report and then submit informed comments. That's
So-
ridiculous.
Could I get a motion that we write a letter conceptually and asking for more public hearings or expressing concern over the project or whatever you wanted to say, but make a motion that we draft a letter and reviewed by everyone before it goes out? Is
I
that
have
is that
public
fair to
safety
say?
concerns, I have environmental concerns,
So we'll draft something up, and would you make that motion, Mr. Gasper?
so moved.
Mr. DeRoche, you want a second?
Second.
Second, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll help with that, because I've written my letter, and they've got some information on it.
Comment, your email is right here under number 2.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a
Mr.
question?
Barrett, yes, sir.
There's a fact sheet.
I think I overheard her say that through the process,
Okay.
some of the excess may be going into the New Bedford sewer system?
Correct, yes, that is correct. The discharge,
'Cause I
52,000 gallons.
don't know how many combined sewer overflows we have in town, whether 4 or 6, but I mean, that goes right into our river.
Right. Correct.
Not only that, but I mean, for years, we've been working with Buzzards Bay Coalition to help them clean out this area. It seems extremely counterproductive. And I guess my other question would be, is anyone reached out to EPA to see what their take on this is?
It goes to them at a certain point anyway, so it would be kind of premature to even bother to reach out to them until it actually gets to their desks.
Well, except that
But
my
once it
feeling
does,
is
we'll be
that they-
outside banging on their doors.
They've spent millions of dollars cleaning up the harbor.
Right.
Why would they let it be polluted again?
Money.
Money, yeah. They call biosolids, the company in Quincy calls biosolids their black gold, because they make a lot of money from selling.
Plus, you put black gold at a green energy center.
Yeah, they
Correct.
call oil black gold too, so,
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Marshall,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Wallace,
Appreciate
thank you.
Appreciate it.